Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on iRacing and we're back with a race at Spa in the VRS series. You can see there myself starting in P21, quite far down the grid. Right next to me, Rubens Lando, as I give him a little tap there, not on purpose because I had massive understeer, went off throttle. And that is obviously the real Rubens Lando, quite a big sim racer. He's into his sim racing. And also in this race was Lando Norris starting at the back of the grid. He didn't get a lap in qualifying. This was a very high strength of field race, 4.2k. Obviously a lot of fast drivers in there, and not what the type of race I really wanted to be going into when I'm not fully back up to speed in this game and my first time really racing this Audi. So down in P21, not the worst qualifying. You see Rubens Lando actually got the jump on me on the start, got ahead, so I decided to just get into that slipstream. He goes into the corner really aggressively and actually gets a little bit of understeer as he goes through the corner and cuts the top of the chicane off there. I seen that straight away, realised he'd get a penalty, so I moved over to the left around there now, realising that he's going to have to lift to get rid of that penalty. So I get that position back, and that's pretty much the race, the longest bit of racing I had against him in this race. This was not a long race. There was an incident in this which is not going to take long to get to. As you can see, caught up to the drivers in front, a lot of close racing going on, so not going to make any stupid moves. This was lap one obviously of a long race, 17-18 lap race. There's no point making any stupid daft moves into corners, so I just wanted to hold back. I'd had a lot of bad luck, which I'm going to show you after this race. The other races, I think I'm just having a lot of bad luck in sim racing in general recently. It's just not going right for me. Hopefully it's going to pick up, and once I can put more time into iRacing, hopefully I'll pick my speed back up, because I am lacking quite a big margin in terms of what I used to be like on this game. Hopefully I can find that. As you can see there, getting pressured by the Audi R8 behind me, but needed to get back into the slipstream with the car in front, so I tried to get through these corners as fast as possible. It wouldn't take much, because obviously with the traffic you'll find that people will be losing a bit of time in certain areas when a car has to lift off early or something like that. Especially into the chicane, I knew that I'd catch up going into the final chicane before the start straight line. It was a shame obviously that Rubens made that mistake on the top of the chicane and cut that chicane very slightly, giving himself a bit of a penalty, but I'm sure I'll race him again. I've seen him in quite a few practice sessions. He's on the game a fair amount, and it was a shame because when I was in the practice session, I think we were both running race fuel, and the gap between ourselves was pretty much identical, so it could have been a really fun race against Rubens if obviously the incident wouldn't have happened in this, and obviously he didn't cut that corner. But you can see there a little bit of contact to the Mercedes in front of me. He lifted off just as he came out the exit of the corner, and it caught me by surprise. I don't really know why he lifted so much there, but luckily just about staying in the slipstream. And you'll notice there Lando Norris is 2 cars behind me. I wasn't aware he was even in this race at this point. I only knew that Rubens Lando was in the race, didn't have any sort of idea that Lando Norris was in the race also. But you can see he's just a couple of cars back, and I'm just really just trying to get to the end of this race, to be brutally honest. I just wanted to get to the end and get some sort of result, because the races haven't been going well, and I've not got the speed I used to. The setups, I just can't get the setups where I want them at the moment. I'm really struggling with. This was again driving the pure driving school setup with changes made to it. I tried to add a bit of differential to power to try and get some oversteer on the power, because it's getting a bit of understeer, but then that was causing understeer when lifting off the throttle. I think I'm going to be able to get the setups where I want them in the future. As you can see Lando Norris behind me there. I go to have a little look up the inside there, but backs off it, and Lando Norris just completely throws one up the inside. That for me was too aggressive and a little bit wrong, but I'm still in the race, so I wasn't totally devastated. He obviously wants to get on with things. He's a fast driver on the game, and you can see there he actually made a move on another driver then, but had to back out of it, then got through on the corner. He's on the inside there at this point, and they look like they're having a bit of a contest going on here now with the Mercedes. As you can see, the Mercedes pulls over to the right there. I don't know why he did that, whether he just ran wide, but he gives Lando Norris a tap into that corner in front of me, and again, and knocks Lando off. I seen Lando go there, so I stayed as tight to this apex as possible, but then suddenly Lando's car just came straight back online, and I had nowhere to go. And pretty much the luck continues on my sim racing of just stuff that I can't really avoid. I tried to stay as tight as I could to that apex to try and avoid. It looked like he was going to go straight off to the right hand side, so for me the sensible option was to stay to the left and let him go to the right, and unfortunately he hit a car, collided with the car that he was battling with. And now this was weird. I go to go over the right of Lando, go to the left as he blocks the right, and then there's contact, and that's completely race over. So it probably would have been race over anyway. I mean, my car was pretty much wrecked, So I really don't know what happened then. We're going to have a little look at the replay and go through that now. So let's have a little look at this now. Going into this corner now, this was a little bit too far back by Lando Norris. I don't know if it was because I braked a little bit early, because I could see they were battling up ahead and I saw him going for that move. So I braked a bit early, but then I was a little bit naughty, I think, by Lando Norris. He shouldn't have really gone for that move, and I was a bit annoyed, but I wasn't, you know, too bad, because I don't know if I picked up any damage. You can pick up damage so easy on this game. But now have a little look just up ahead. You will see that obviously Lando is battling with another driver in that Mercedes, and you're just going to catch it at the top of the screen where there's a little bit of contact. And we're just going to see if we can have a little look now where the Mercedes there, we're slowing it down. He hits him once there, and you're going to see him again hit him there, and then that knocks Lando off course. So that's not really Lando's fault. But then as he's driving back on now, I think he's going to go to the right hand side, but then he collects with him, and I'm nowhere to go, clean into Lando Norris, and that's my race over. So not much I could do. A lot of damage. You can see also the rear wing got whacked against the tyre wall, and that was more damage to the rear of the car. Got started again, obviously, down in pretty much last place. Rubens Lando actually got through everyone through that, and quite lucky, because without the incident that he had, he would have probably been right in the middle of all that, and his race would have also been ruined. But luckily he got that time penalty at the start, so he was right at the back and just got through all the carnage then. And now this is the other incident. Obviously after that, I was obviously probably going to go in the pits on this lap, depending on how the car was handling. It wasn't feeling too great, but I go to his right hand side. You see there, he moves over as if he's going to let me through on the right hand side. And so I'm going to go to that right hand side and go round him. I thought he was going to try and block me or something, but then he goes to the right hand side to cover that as if to stop me. And then as I go to the left hand side, you're going to see a change of course in his line there, and we collide. I think he was struggling with steering. I personally think that his steering was totally gone and he couldn't really steer the car. So that's probably what happened. I don't think it was anything. I really don't think there was anything deliberate in that. I just think that's when his steering's gone and he's just trying to keep the car in a straight line, and we both get wiped out. So unfortunate, not the race I wanted in that, but it was pretty much the luck of Spa for me again on this game, all pretty much yesterday. So this was another race. This was actually before that race. Again, starting from P13 in a reasonably high split. These splits were fairly high at Spa. I think a lot of people getting practice for the 6 hours of Spa race that I think is coming up soon. And again, going through the corner, and I go here now. I think everyone's gone, but then I see them braking, so I had to, as I lift off, everyone goes again. I should have really kept my foot down there and kept going, but I have to lift then and let that Mercedes also through. So losing a few places at the start, but not too worried. You know, like I say, these are long races. There's no point making stupid moves. As you can see, a lot of weaving going about. Driving like that is it's just a bit silly. So I backed out of this here. I just lifted completely full. I'm not going to get involved with that. I'll just back off. And again, I'm going to brake early into this chicane and just lift off nice and early. Make sure that I don't get involved with anything that's going on up ahead. I didn't want to get any sort of, you know, crash from someone else. And the way my luck's going on this game at the moment, anything can happen. So I'm just trying to drive really cautious. You can see, going to the left hand side, not going to make a move, brake nice and early, just make sure there's a gap in front if there's any sort of issues. As you see, the Mercedes has a bit of contact. They're going side by side, so again, I've got to be really careful at this point. I don't want to get involved with anything, but he's got a really poor exit in that Mercedes, so I'm going to go over to the right hand side, but I see him coming back over, so I have to lift there, and then he brakes really early and I have to lift again, go to turn in, and there's contact on the rear of the car, and again I've been wiped out mid-corner. I don't know why the Mercedes even thought of going down the inside there. For me, that was a bit of a silly move. He should have just backed off like I did with the car in front. You know, this is lap 1 of an 18-lap race, and people are making stupid decisions. It is a bit frustrating, but like I say, the luck that I'm getting with sim racing at the moment, this is pretty much how every race is going for me. I'm just getting random bad luck. Now, this was the final race I did, the 11 o'clock race last night. I thought I've got to have one more chance of getting a race done, partly because I also wanted to get the credits, because all these races have not been going well. And going into the Rouge there, I tried to go on the outside, he was on the inside, and both of us came to a little bit of contact. Unfortunately, I come off worse. I didn't know if I picked up any damage in that. It's possible, but you can't really tell. It just felt like the car felt a little bit bit strange through some of the corners, but on iRacing it's quite hard to know if you definitely had any sort of damage. It really is difficult to pick up on it when you're driving, because sometimes you can think something's bad like happened that hasn't really caused any harm. But luckily, at least still in this race, this was another high split. I think this was over a 4k strength of field race. I'd managed to qualify, I think, about P15. Again, not a great qualifying. Obviously, I do need to start getting my speed up. I need to start working on the setups myself, I think, because the setups that I'm downloading feel way too safe. They feel too cautious. They don't feel fast. Compared to the setups that I used to get when I was on the game originally and I was a lot more competitive, they feel a lot different. And I know the game's changed a bit in terms of the downforce of the cars, but I don't feel like the setups that I'm getting are anywhere near as competitive as the ones I used to use. Obviously, I used to change them quite a bit, practicing, in practice session, altering the setups. Haven't really got the time to do that at the moment. Obviously, with just jumping on for one day. This is pretty much my third or fourth week back on the game, and I've only been on for one day each week. So this was like I think I'd done a practice session the day before at Spa, and just getting used to the Audi R8, and then obviously just going to jump into some races and try and get used to it a bit more in the race conditions. But like I say, a lot of people on iRacing, that's all they play. So I will, hopefully, once I can start getting back on it a bit more, which should happen in a few months or so, I should be able to put a lot more time into GT Sport and iRacing and get a lot more content for both of them. So it will be a lot more interesting when I can do that and actually work on some of the setups for myself, alter the setups that I'm getting and see if they're any better. Because the pure driving school setups, they're okay, but I don't think they're that fast. They feel safe, very safe, but I don't particularly think they're really competitive if you're racing in the top splits. I think they're okay for the majority of people in terms of ability to drive the car at an okay speed, but I think if you really want to be pushing some of these guys, these high I-rated drivers, you really need the better setups, and I really need to start working on them and working something out, because I haven't found the setup yet that's working for me particularly well. I'm sure some of it is just my speed in general. Probably 3 or 4 attempts of it is just the speed of lack of playing the game as much. I really do need to start picking up somewhere because I'm losing so much iRate at the moment. I started back on at 4.8, I think it was, and I'm down to about 4.2 or 4.3 or something now. I've lost nearly 500 or 600 iRating, but it's to be expected when you jump back on a game after not playing it for nearly a year. You're always going to lose a lot on such a competitive game like iRacing. You're being put straight back in with all the fastest drivers on the game. You're going to struggle, and I'm sure I'll get through the struggle and then start picking my speed up, and then hopefully I can start picking some okay results up again. I had some good results in the past when I was on it originally, and that's going to be the aim, to get back to that that level when I was able to put more time into it as well and get some solid results. And I think I managed top 10 in the Blanc when it was a Blancpain series in my first ever season in the GT3. I managed a top 10 position by the end of the season, or it might have been top 12. I don't know if I got top. Yeah, I think I got top 10. It's possible, but obviously I then stopped playing it after then, and ended up playing a lot of other games and GT Sport a lot. Went a bit quiet for a bit on the channel with Project Cars 2 was a bit of a letdown for me, but then got into GT Sport, and that really got me back into the competitive racing, so I wanted to get back on iRacing. Obviously when I can put more time into these games, I'm going to be obviously on iRacing, hopefully reasonably equal amount to GT Sport, putting at least an upload out every few days on it, and doing some other different forms of racing, not just the GT3. There is a couple of other forms of racing that I don't mind doing. I'm probably going to avoid the GT cars for a bit, because unless I can figure out the brake, I need to alter the brake setup for that them cars, and I might be able to do them in the future if I get used to them. But again, they're cars that you really got to put a lot of time into to really master on the game. That's one thing with iRacing, you really do have to master a car and get used to its every little quirk in the setup and everything. But you see, in this race so far, even though the start went quite bad and I lost a lot of positions, I'm not doing too bad. I'm just trying to hold on. I'm not sure if I picked up some form of damage at the start when we both collided, whether it's possible, because the slightest contact on this game, especially side-on contact like that around the wheel arches, it can cause you issues. But just trying to hold on at the moment and see if I can stay with these, and just trying to get any form of result. Again, you can see a lot of close racing still, even though we're at the back of the grid. This is a top split race. In top split races, like where it's over 4k strength of field, you're going to get this type of racing all the way through the field, and that's why I do love iRacing, because the competition's so high that, you know, I do obviously love GT Sport, but its daily races are nowhere near as competitive. These races on iRacing, every single race like this, when it's, you know, a strong track like Spa where a lot of people tend to drive it, and especially when there's 6 hours of Spa, each of these iRacing races are like the FIA races on GT Sport, when you get a match where everyone, all the best players are getting in it. That's what these races are like every time. So pretty much every day when you're doing these races, that's what you're getting. Really competitive driving and really close. You know, it's a case of qualifying being so important, because you can have a situation where, you know, 10 drivers are pretty much separated by 3-4 tenths, and that's why the qualifying lap's so important. Even on a long track like this, the gaps are really close, so it's really key to get that qualifying lap in so that you're a little bit further ahead. And also the battling that goes on can cause issues. You can see the issues that I've had so far in these races. Luckily this race started much better, and no real issues with other cars except for the lap 1 where going through a Rouge, we tried to go through side by side. Don't really know whose fault it was. Both went in pretty much dead level. He had the inside for the first corner, but then I would have had the inside for the next part. And unfortunately, when we came to with the contact, my car really seemed to get affected a lot more than his, and I had to lift off, because if it didn't lift off, I would have been going, you know, causing a massive incident. So I backed off and tried to stop, you know, any cars getting, you know, in an incident. As you can see there, more battling going on in front of me. I've picked up a place there, so one more place picked up, and that BMW in front of me lost a bit of time there. So I've now got to try and pick up their slipstream. And I was pretty sure that my car must have picked up some form of damage, because the top end of my car felt really weak compared to what it was normally. It looked like it wasn't picking up as much speed even when in the slipstream. You can see they're going to the left hand side. There's no point trying to worry about picking up their slipstream. We're just staying on my line. They're going to lose time at this point because they're battling so hard in this race. They're getting really aggressive, and now I can start really trying to hook onto his car pretty much with the slipstream. You can see myself having a little look at a few things on that right hand side. I can't remember what I was messing around with them. It's possible I was having a little look at the traction control set, trying to get to that. I haven't really set up much in terms of keyboard controls on this. So you can see a car getting so close to the wall on the outside there. He ran really wide, kind of skimmed the wall through there, and now this is getting really close battling going on. You can see the understeer off throttle. That is what I made some changes with the setup that I used, the pure driving school setup, and it created, the changes I made actually created a lot of understeer when off the throttle, because I altered the diff a little bit too much. I think I should have kept the diff the way it was and just took the traction control off, because what I found was the traction control was on like setting 9 or something on their setup. For me that just felt too restricting, so I'd moved it down to I think level 4 or 5 or something, so that when I got on the power it actually felt like the power was doing something. Maybe I should have kept their base setup and then just altered the traction control to see how that felt, and then obviously got the turning ability, because I think the differential, I put it to about 110 to try and get more power out of the car on the exit of corners to get a bit more oversteer. But then that created understeer when off the throttle, and for corners like that long fast left-hander at Spa, as soon as you get off the throttle, it created understeer that I was then trying to work with to get on the power, and sometimes it was just either understeering or oversteering. It was just quite complicated. This car is pretty tricky, a reasonably tricky car to drive though. I found that if you downshift it too fast, it can really cause the rear end to step out, so that's another thing that I've got to get used to with this car. Obviously I was used to driving the Mercedes. The Mercedes is what I used to drive. I've driven it on this season so far, and you know, since I've been back in the game, I do like the Mercedes, but I wanted to try something new out. I do like, you know, on Assetto Corsa, I love this car. It's one of my favourite cars, so I wanted to try it out. I did buy it, so I thought I need to get used to it, have a go with it, and try and, you know, get up to speed with it, because it seems that a lot of people are using this Audi at the moment. It seems like it's one of the faster cars to be used. So that's why I'm obviously using it, because I want to be in one of the more competitive cars. Although I think the Mercedes isn't far behind the Audi as far as I could tell, but it seems like the real top drivers, the drivers that are, you know, putting in the stupidly fast lap times, a lot of them are using this Audi. So there's obviously a reason for that, and I really need to try and get my speed up with it and work it out and get some form of setup that I can use. Obviously it's going to change every track, but try and get used to something to change or something, because there's definitely a difference between the setups that I'm using compared to the setups that others are using, because there's people that I used to be very similar to in terms of speed that are now a lot faster. Obviously they've got faster as a game, obviously playing it more, but I think a lot of it is the setups. iRacing, the setups are really important. There is quite a big margin to be gained with setups, and once I've got more time I will work them out and put more time into them. But you can see there right in front of me the BMW Z4, one of my favourite cars on the original Project cars. I did love that car. I don't own it on iRacing. I don't know what the BOP is like on that car at the moment. It seems like a car that's always reasonably okay from what I remember. When I was on it last time, it was an okay-ish car. Some tracks it was weak, but overall it was normally an okay car that got used every now and then. It looks like it's fairly similar now on the current BOP. I really am not too sure. Obviously only done a few races, so I haven't really picked up much. I've just noticed that it's a lot of Mercedes and a lot of Audis at the moment, whereas when I was on it originally, the Audi was really weak. It was pretty much a car that no one drove because it was so weak. You can see there now in P15, race is going reasonably okay. I'm not obviously got much pace, as you can see, battling going on in front of me, and then going into a Rouge, it looked like they were going to go side by side. This was going to be interesting whether they was going to go side by side. My guess is one of them is going to back out, but it looks like BMW's made that move before then and actually tucked in to take a normal racing line. So he's got himself up a position. It looks like some people have actually pitted or something, or had incidents in this race, because obviously at that start issue I started P15, but now I'm up a few positions, so some people have probably gone in the pits early. It's a strange thing to do at this track. You don't change tyres in the pits, so for this track I like to just get rid of that fuel and then change tyres once your fuel's at its lowest point. But you can see they're getting really close. 4 cars really close together in this race, even after quite a few laps. A long track at Spa, so each lap is well over 2 minutes 13, 2 minutes 14 around that time. And the Mercedes behind me getting really close, but I've also got really close to the other Mercedes in front of me, so it's really tricky this one, because I've got to be careful that he doesn't make a move on me into any corner, but I've also got to get quite aggressive and stay in that slipstream, and obviously if a move becomes available, to make a move there. You can see they're throwing it into this corner. Didn't get so much understeer that time, managed to get a reasonable amount of speed through that corner and got on the power reasonably early, but that corner was causing me issues in general with the Audi. It's mainly when I downshifted too fast. Sometimes it was spinning the rears out in practice where it just started drifting all the way around. It's more because I was going through the gears too fast, and it was when sometimes I went into 6th gear before the corner and then downshifted too fast to 4th gear, and it just seemed to kick the rear out on the rear axle, or when obviously on the differential, where it just can't cope with the amount of how fast I've changed from 6th to 4th gear, and the rear was just not living with that. So that's probably why it was happening. It's just something that I've got to get used to with driving this car. Again, getting a lot of understeer through that corner, and this is what was making me think about the possibility of getting a little bit of damage at the start, because I was getting understeer where I wasn't always getting understeer. This final chicane I really was struggling. I seem to struggle on that chicane pretty much with every car. It was the same when I was driving the Mercedes in the IMSA series, the IMSA series. I was getting the exact same issue with the Mercedes as I'm getting now with the Audi, so it could just be something to do with the line that I'm taking through there where I'm losing a bit of speed. But luckily the Mercedes behind me wasn't able to make a move, and I'm still within a reasonable close distance of the 2 cars in front of me, and there's another 3 or 4 so cars up ahead of them. I was pushing through the really faster Rouge there. Got to be so careful not to get over that curb and pick up a time penalty to slow you down, or even the -1, because this track is so hard to keep. You get 17 opportunities of obviously running over getting a ×1, contacts ×4. So if you have any contact with another car, this race can become quite a tense one, especially in the last few laps if you're fairly close to getting disqualified from the race. But that's why I think the penalty system on iRacing is better than what GT Sport has to offer, because you rarely get people getting the slow down penalties. It's only when they cut a corner that actually gains them an advantage that it'll give you a slow down penalty. And the way they do it is a bit different to obviously GT Sport. The cars don't ghost or nothing like that. You just get a time penalty that you need to get rid of on the straight, and it works a little bit better on this game, I think, because you're not getting penalties every 2 seconds. Like GT Sport, you get the penalties so often when we used to. It's not so bad now, but I still prefer this way to the GT Sport overall, because I think even though you've seen there's been some quite bad driving going on in some of the recent videos I've posted, you know, some aggressive driving. Overall, you find that people are a bit more cautious because they don't want to get disqualified from the race, and obviously iRacing has damage on, that's why as well people are a little bit more cautious in general with some of the moves that they make, because if they just lunge one up and pick up damage, their race can be over. So that's why you will find a little bit more caution in the drive. And as you can see, getting really close at Mercedes, as he was obviously lining up to go in the pits. I wasn't aware of that. He didn't give me any. You can let people know that you're going to be pitting in, but he didn't do that, and he just caught me by surprise, because the line he took was obviously to go in the pits, and I nearly went into the back of him, but luckily just got away with that and didn't do it. As I got on the power really early on the exit there, nearly lost the rear of the car, where I got on the power on the curb, caused the rear end to slide a bit, and luckily got away with that. So lost a bit of time to the BMW up front there with the Mercedes that went in the pits, and then that little mistake on the exit of turn 1, but still in an okay position. Obviously I really don't expect in splits like this, when it's really competitive racing, I don't expect to be getting into the top 10 really. If it would have been when I was originally on the game, I would have been hoping for a top 6 or 7, top 8 position, something like that, because I was able to pull some reasonably good results from some reasonably high split races. But I think when the best drivers are on the game, you know, some of the drivers, I came up against one guy, I think it was the person who actually does the setups for the pure driving score. Obviously I don't think he's making the same setups that he uses. I very much doubt that anyway, but his I rating was like 10,000 or something. I've never seen that before on the game. Never seen anyone with an I rating that high. As you can see, they're going through this corner, and the issue that I mentioned before, downshifted too hard, down into 4th gear, and the rear has just snapped on me and started to drift, and I've had to wait there, kept an eye on the delta on the bottom right to make sure no one was there, and unfortunately got quite a bit of damage from that. Managed to make it round to the pits, and couldn't repair the damage in the pits when it came to the pit stop. It was still drivable, the car, but I was losing about 2-3 miles per hour on the straights, but there was no point repairing it in the pits, because it was nearly 2-3 minutes worth of damage that I picked up. So I just stayed out and managed to hold on to a position that I got to go over the line in P16. Not a great result, but at least I got to the end of the race and got the credits for the obviously the end of season credits. If for getting the race entered, you need to get eight races entered into 2 championships to pick up the credits. So I got that race done, and hopefully next race, although I think it's the IMSA that I'm going to need to race in the next one, because I don't own the track for the VRS series, and the IMSA track is another risky track. Whether I will do it properly, it's a track that I actually didn't mind when I was on the game originally. I did do a race on this track when I was originally on it, so I will probably do that. What car I'll use, I don't know. I'm going to have to start working on the setup, but again, I can't get on until Sunday. This is another issue at the moment, is I'm not getting on until Sunday to do a bit of practice and then racing Monday, by which time everyone is massively up to speed, and I'm just starting to get up to speed, so I'm finding myself a little bit behind straight away. But there's nothing I can really do with regards to that at the moment. Obviously with the FIA on the GT Sport, once the FIA finishes, I can change the dates when I race these races on iRacing. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that video. I'll be back with more videos on iRacing next week, and every single day I'll be uploading on GT Sport also. Thanks again for watching, everyone.